G'day, I'm Paul. So we recently reviewed the Great Wall Motors Canon, and in that review a lot of you asked us to do the LDV T60. Well, it has just received a facelift and a bit of a name change, so this is it here. It's the facelifted LDV T60 Max, and this one here is the top spec Luxe version. So it's called the LDV T60 Max Luxe. Bit of a mouthful. This one here is priced at a little over $40,000. It competes with things like the Great Wall Motors Canon, the SsangYong Musso, and the Mitsubishi Triton. There are plenty of competitors in that segment. If this is a little bit too much though, the entire range kicks off at just over $30,000. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car. So if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of the review, you can use the time codes up on the screen there, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe, press the bell icon. That's going to tell you every single time we drive facelifted cars. Okay, exterior. So you've got 6 external colours to pick from. All but this white colour are an additional $500. So this is the facelift. So you remember the old one sort of had a bigger headlight cluster there, a slightly smaller grille. This has just gone for the enormous grille look and then this slimline headlight cluster up the top here. So look, I think it's divided opinion. I don't reckon it looks all that good, but cameraman Igor thinks it looks good, plus the other guys at the office think it looks good as well. So I'm not the last word on style, but I'll leave it up to you guys to decide that. So LDV logo up the top here, and then the rest of this grille section is just cooling. So you've got a set of cooling elements behind there. You've got a radar just here and a camera here for the 360 camera, and then this bottom section here is a protector if you do any off-road driving. In terms of the headlights, you've got a set of daytime LED running lights up the top there. The headlight cluster is down the bottom here. These are LED headlights as well. They work good at night, not amazing though, so I would like to see a little bit more projection out of these given they are LED. Around the side here you've got a set of 17-inch alloy wheels, and in terms of the design you've just got that machined finish on the outside and kind of a graphite finish on the inside there. Big profile on that tyre too, so it's a highway terrain tyre. Now there is an interesting suspension setup here. So both the entry-level Pro version and the top spec Luxe version have leaf spring setups, but the top spec is designed for comfort, so it's tuned for a comfortable ride, and it's tuning done here in Australia, and the entry-level is done for payload. So there is a slight payload difference between them of around 200 kilos. So that is the big difference there, and it's worth keeping in mind if you are buying and need the payload, you're going to have to go to the entry level as opposed to this top spec version. And I'll be keen to see how it does ride, because it is one of the few Chinese utes that's actually tuned here in Australia. So hopefully that means the ride is better than some of the alternatives that we have. Up the top here, bi-turbo. I think that's Ford Ranger has that on the side, so I can see where they're getting their inspiration from. Bit of chrome there, and that chrome continues here on the mirror caps as well. Got an indicator built into there, plus the camera nestled into the side there as well. So the side's a little bit bare. There's no side steps. There's sort of nothing really of note here. No roof rails, nothing. So yeah, that's interesting. Come around to the back, I'll show you the tray dimensions. Okay, so you pull this handle, that drops to the tray. There is no torsion bar there, which is a little bit annoying because that's fairly heavy to lift. You've got a tray length of just under 1.5 meters and a depth of 530 mil, and there's just over 1100 millimeters between the wheel arches. And I mentioned earlier the payload differences between the entry level and the top spec. So the top spec is 750 kilos, while the entry level has a payload of just under 1 ton. So they're the differences there. You've got hooks off to the side here. There's no 12-volt outlet, but you do get this spray-in bed liner. So you have LED taillight elements off to the side there with incandescent globes in the center. You've got LDV T60 badging, and then Seik Motor, which is the parent company. Let's talk about this. So plastic, it says T60 Max. It has just been fitted extremely poorly. So it's got this rubber seal around it, and it's already loose in the center section there. If I was buying one of these, I'd probably just take that off altogether. It's just a, yeah, weird thing to have. You have side steps here to retrieve things from the tray, and a braked towing capacity of 3,000 kilos. So let me know what you reckon about the facelifted version of the T60 Max in the comment section below. So we're inside the T60 Max. We'll start off with the key. Here it is. So you have lock, unlock, panic, and then on the back is the LDV symbol. This is a proximity sensing key, so you can just leave that in your pocket, and then once you're inside you have a push button start to switch everything on. In terms of the design, I think it's actually really quite nicely presented. This screen's new to the facelift, but the rest of it's sort of fairly familiar, which means scratchy surfaces up the top there, and then it sort of continues down the side there, but you do have these soft touch pieces along the edge to rest your knee on while you're driving, and then a bit of piano black around here and around the screen itself. It really is just inoffensive, I think, and it'll be interesting to see once the new Ford Ranger's released, that big sort of vertical screen that they're going to be releasing with that model, whether these brands now try and mimic that, because obviously this kind of thing looks great at the moment, but it's going to look very small and unsophisticated compared to the big screen we'll see on Ranger in due course. So yeah, we'll watch that space. In terms of the touch points, so soft to the touch there and soft over on the door, which means while you are driving, they're all going to be good. How soft are they? Well, we've got our gyrometer. Tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description. Now, build quality. See what it's like. That's pretty wonky just there, but the rest of this feels fairly solid. Do you own a T60? Let me know in the comment section, how has it been over time? Has it sort of stood the test of time? Door. Sounds okay. A little bit tinny though. Let's talk infotainment. So this is a new infotainment system. It's 10.25 inches in size, really nicely presented and very high resolution. I love the detail in that screen. It is, it's a really good setup, and I think in the entry-level utes, this is probably the best infotainment system out there in terms of the functionality and the display. In terms of radio, you have AM and FM radio. No digital radio, which I reckon is a bit disappointing, and it seems to be a common theme amongst the Chinese utes that they don't have digital radio. Whether it's a hardware thing or a software thing, I don't really know, but nothing here. And that's all plumbed through a 6-speaker sound system. Sound system is average, it's not amazing, so you won't be in a rock concert set up here. Outside of that, you have the ability to go through all of the different sort of settings here for your phone with Bluetooth connectivity. And then of course you can control the phone using the steering wheel here. There is no voice recognition set up, so unless you have the phone connected, there's no way to get the car to do anything outside of just sending commands through Siri. Smartphone mirroring. Now it's interesting, most cars come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, whereas here it just has Apple CarPlay and QD Link. So no Android Auto there. In terms of Apple CarPlay itself, look at that, full screen integration, really sharp and quick enough. Like, it's a tiny bit laggy, but for the most part, that's pretty good. And I think that as a standard integration is fantastic. Outside of that, there's really not much else going on here. There's no inbuilt navigation. That's all done through your smartphone mirroring setup. So let's touch on safety, and I think this is probably the bit that I'm most put off by this vehicle. It has a 5-star safety rating, but that's from quite a while ago. I think it's around 5 years ago that it was actually tested. This is now one of the few utes on the market that doesn't actually have autonomous emergency braking, which is the tech that stops the car if you don't. And it really doesn't have much else in addition to that anyway. There's no blind spot monitoring. And then if you jump over here into the car menu, all you have is a lane departure warning and a fatigue warning, but that's about it. So it is a little disappointing that this is so underprotected in terms of that active safety equipment. You really do have to look elsewhere if that stuff is important to you. When it comes to parking, you only have rear parking sensors, but you do get a 360 camera. I'll show you what that looks like. I've got to start the car, pop this into reverse. There it is there. So really not very good quality. It's very low quality there. The top-down view is also pretty much redundant because you can't really see anything around the car. You do get different angles that you can choose though. So that's out the front there, that's out the back, and you've got side views as well. But yeah, like I said, the quality really isn't that good. Moving on to practicality, and we'll start with your connectivity. So down the front here, you've got 2 USB ports. One of those is for your smartphone mirroring. Where are you going to put your phone? Well, let me just disconnect this. Your phone can live down the front there. It's not a wireless charging pad, but it is gripped, which means it's not going to go anywhere. Or you can pop your phone in the cup holders, should you so desire. What about your coffee? That fits, actually it doesn't really. So yeah, a small coffee like this, you're going to probably take the lid off and you'll need to prop it up when you put that inside that cup holder. In terms of bottle storage, fits into there, but you don't have any teeth, so that kind of moves around a fair bit. But you do get cup holders in front of the air vents, so you can pop your bottle in there or your coffee and it'll either keep it cold on a hot day or warm on a cold day. And then down here, you've got bottle storage inside the door. We'll see if it fits our big bottle as well. Yes. Winner, so you can stick a big bottle in there if you need to. And then in the center here, you have a reasonably sized storage area. This also slides forwards and backwards. Glove box, pretty small. I think by the time you get the manual in there, that's all going to be taken up. And finally, you have a sunglasses holder up the top. Comfort comes in the form of single zone automatic climate control. The seats are electrically adjustable for the front row, so that's forwards, backwards. The backrest moves forwards and backwards, and then you can lift the seat height as well. The seats, they are interesting. So the entry level comes with cloth seats, but this has a leather finish. I think that means it's just parts of it are leather. I don't know that all of it is leather. Seats are fairly comfortable, but they are pretty firm. Steering, it is plastic. It's not really leather wrapped, which is a shame, and it only offers tilt adjustment. There is no reach adjustment. Then on our reach test, all of this is easy to reach while you're driving. Now, before I jump in and show you the room, let me demonstrate some of the features of the second row. So you can drop the backrest down. That gives you a little bit of storage behind the seat there, and then also your two top tether points. If I lift that back up, you can also lift the base of the seat, and that reveals two storage areas. You've got one here for the jack, and then another here that is empty and includes some random piece of electronic equipment. We'll hop in, we'll use our handy handle, and I won't sit on that and break that. So once you're inside, you have a reasonable amount of knee room. Toe room is great, and headroom is really impressive. You know what surprises me? I just don't understand how you can get into an Maric, for example, and my knees are wedged inside the back of the seat, hard up against some metal bar. Yet with this, which is similar in size, they've managed to package the interior so much better. So love that layout, and it means that you can carry your mates in here if you need to, and everything will be good. So in terms of other creature comforts, you have a center armrest here with two cup holders. Chuck our bottle in there. Again, no teeth, so that just sort of falls over. You do have storage inside the doors though, which is good. You have air vents over here, a 12-volt outlet, map pockets as well, and then ISOFIX points on your two outboard seats to join those top tether points. So look, it's actually not a bad place to be seated, if I'm honest. So we've just hit the road in the T60 Max, and if it sounds like I'm yelling at you, it's because I am. It is a really, really noisy diesel engine, both from outside but inside the cabin. And I'll run you through why that's a bit of a trade-off in just a second. Powering this is a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine. Makes 160 kilowatts of power, but most impressively, 500 Newton meters of torque. Means that it's up there with the best in the segment, which is Ford Ranger and the Toyota Hilux in terms of torque output. So that's really good. And then from behind the wheel, like if you give this a kick, it gives you a really solid push in the back. It's a nice meaty feel to it, and it doesn't feel underdone, which is what you can get with some of these utes. And the reason I was saying that the sound isn't that big of a deal is because the trade-off is you're getting 500 Newton meters of torque, and you can really feel it across the rev band. It doesn't need to hunt through gears. Speaking of which, 8-speed ZF automatic transmission, so it's a proper German gearbox, and it suits the engine really nicely. Now, the one thing I did notice though that I just find really strange, and I find this across quite a few of these utes, is they just lack go off the line. So if I come to a complete stop here, it holds second gear for a second before it drops back into first. But if I put the power down, nothing, 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 everything. So I can load up the throttle and then it goes straight away. So it's clearly just a calibration there of some sort. If I was buying one of these, the first thing I would do is put like a different throttle map on it, so it gives me everything to start with. And just in terms of the gearbox as well, let's have a little play with it here. Look, it feels really confident. You can get stuck into it, and it's always ready to go and eager to please. Like, you're never really left wanting. So I like the way that this is set up. Now, in terms of fuel economy, LDV claims 9.3 litres per 100 Ks. Let's have a look at what we're sitting on. We are currently on 9.6. So it's pretty much bang on exactly where it needs to be, which is pretty impressive. Let's talk about drive modes. So you have Eco, which kind of just dulls the throttle even more. You have Normal, and then you have Power. One more push of that sharpens everything up a little bit and makes it a bit more eager to please. Let's talk about how this actually sends torque to the ground. You can actually select between 2 high, 4 low, but there's also an auto mode. And the auto mode's good because you're able to leave it in that, and it will automatically then engage the front axle if it detects slip. And that, I think, is the most balanced setting. We've seen that with Mitsubishi and the Super Select 4-wheel drive system. I think this is such a great innovation, and it means that you don't have to be driving in 4 high on sealed surfaces and then running the risk of damaging your driveline. Now, what's it like through some corners? We've got our corner coming up here. Look, it's okay. It is a dual cab ute, so we don't expect it to do sort of anything too crazy, but the steering just has no steering feel. Have a look at this. I'm sort of moving the wheel around and it's not affecting the direction of the car. This stuff was kind of gone when they moved away from hydraulic steering systems and they were able to sort of engineer the EPAS systems in, so I have no idea why there is no feel through that wheel. That's really strange. Now, there is no official 0 to 100 time, but we've put it up against our stopwatch and this is how it went. What's the ride like though? Well, this is the curious thing. I was expecting this to be pretty poor, but this has had an Australian ride and handling tune, and it kind of shows because they've gone to a lot of effort to make sure that it works across a variety of conditions. So that's in and around the city and then out over cobblestones and the type of terrible roads here we have in the country. They've really gone to that effort to make sure that it is a pleasing place to be seated. Same can't be said for some of the other Chinese utes in this segment. So on the upshot, this is sort of well kitted out there in terms of the feel behind the wheel on the ride. What about your visibility? So out the front, it's good. This seating position is really high up, so it's quite a commanding driving position. I can see the edges of the bonnet there. The wing mirrors are nice and big, but no blind spot monitoring, which is pretty disappointing for a vehicle this size. Visibility out the rear is fine. The envelope is nice and big, so no real complaints there. Now, what about your turning circle? 12.6 meters, so it's a fairly big turning circle. We'll give it a crack here. Yeah, look, you're probably going to be doing 3-point turns every now and then. And then in terms of the steering, it is sort of pretty heavy there at low speeds. So when it comes to parking and that kind of thing, you're going to have to put just a little bit more effort in. Okay, so let's do a little bit of light off-roading. In terms of the four-wheel drive specs, you have an approach angle of 27 degrees. That's the angle of the face you can approach before you hit the front of the car. You have a departure angle of 24.2 degrees, which is the same. But in reverse, you have a ground clearance of 215 millimeters and a wading depth of 550 millimeters. In addition to that, as I mentioned while we were out for a drive, you've got 2 high, 4 high, 4 low, and auto. Now, if none of that makes any sense to you, click up here to watch a video we shot that explains four-wheel drive controls. It's also a rear diff lock, but there's a special way that operates, and I'll explain that a little later on. So let's give Log Mountain a shot and our descent just in auto mode. I'm just keen to see how it goes here on its own. There's a hill descent control there as well that I'll test on the way down. Okay, here we go. This is one of the problems because the throttle is so laggy. It's surging as I try and climb this gently. Kind of gives me nothing and then everything as I put in a little bit more throttle. So in terms of off-roading, it's going to be a little bit annoying, but it is getting there. It is dry at the moment, so it's probably pretty easy, but it got up there in auto mode on its own, which is great because it means it's able to detect that it needs to use 4 high instead of 2 high, and it's sort of climbing as it goes. Now, let's try hill descent control. Okay, the button is not doing anything. I'll try that in 4 low. Still not doing anything. Okay, so I guess there's no hill descent control. We'll keep that in auto and we'll just go down on our own without hill descent control. That's bizarre. I've tried every combination there and that's still not working. Okay, okay, so we'll head down here. We've got some pretty deep ruts, so keen to see whether we touch on anything on the way down here. Brake pedal has good feel for this downhill section. Yeah, look, this is all pretty straightforward. It's going down without any dramas. We've got full compression at the back there. Yeah, it's actually pretty good. It's nice and comfortable in here as well, which is good. Okay, so let's go over to our offset mogul. Now, this is the interesting thing I mentioned about the rear diff lock. There is no button here which you would traditionally find in one of these that activates the rear diff lock. This has an automatic locking rear diff. So what that means is once it detects a differential in speed between the 2 wheels on the rear axle, it will engage the diff lock and then send you through. So what I'll do, I'm going to put this into 2 high for the moment, just so I can demonstrate how that works, and then we'll go through this again in auto, just to see whether it can sort itself out when we get to the offset mogul and we have a wheel in the air. Okay, here we go. So 2-wheel drive first. We'll come through our seesaw section. I swear this gets deeper every time I come through. It's been raining a lot. Okay, so we'll get to this center section and we'll just have a look at our flex test. See if we can open and close that door. So we're about halfway there. The car is teetering on the edge. Oh, that's interesting. It's catching there a little when I go to close the door. So the body's not quite as strong as some of the utes that we've tested here, because it is catching when I go to close. It means there is a fair bit of flex on the body there when we have that condition of wheels off the ground. I'm going to let off the brake here and roll onto the throttle. There you go, that's pretty straightforward. So I could hear the traction control working there. It got us through without any dramas. What I'll do now though is switch traction control off, because I want to really force that rear diff lock to engage when we get to this section where we basically have a wheel entirely off the ground. So there it is there. It's spinning freely at the back. I'm now going to roll off the brake, roll onto the throttle. Jesus, it's like a gunshot, holy crap. So we'll do it again. Roll off the brake, roll onto the throttle. That is interesting. So yeah, what it's doing there, it detects that there is slip between the axle. Once it gets far enough, it engages the diff lock, and all of a sudden you have torque going to both of those rear wheels instead of it just going to that free spinning one. And it's quite violent when it activates. It just sort of shunts you all of a sudden. So yeah, that was really interesting. So yeah, not the best system in the world, because it is a little unpredictable. And if you are doing some sort of hardcore off-roading, you really want to just be able to activate it yourself and just let it do its own work. So, okay, let's do that again. This time we're in auto mode. Traction control is on. I'm going to let the car do all the work here. It'll figure out, hopefully, that it needs to be out of two-wheel drive and in four-wheel drive. So we'll get straight through this section. We've already done this. And we'll go straight onto the part now where we have a wheel in the air. All right, so we're approaching now. We have that wheel off the ground. The car's sort of teetering on its own. Foot off the brake. Oh, that's excellent. I don't even need to touch the throttle. I'm getting to the point now where I do. Roll onto the throttle and away it goes. So there you go. The car has detected it needs to be in four-wheel drive high range. It's used traction control to stop the wheels spinning, and it gets us out without even trying. So really intelligent setup, and I like how that works. I just wish there was a button there for the diff lock. So the updated LDV T60 Max, what do we reckon? Let's start off with the positives first. So the engine, it has heaps of punch, and it really is up there with the class leaders in terms of its rolling performance. It is quite laggy off the line, but once it's moving, it actually feels really nice and punchy behind the wheel, and it's made it to what is probably the best gearbox in the business there, the 8-speed ZF transmission. I like the infotainment system. It's a really high resolution screen. The integration's nice. It's easy to use. But the downsides, so the price, it is cheap. But the problem is there are also other cheap utes in this segment, and a lot of them are significantly better in terms of what they offer. And I'll start off with safety. I think it is just unbelievable that this in 2021, almost 2022, as a new model, doesn't have AEB. The cheapest cars in Australia have AEB, so how can you not fit it to something like this that's going to be on the road arguably more than a runabout in the city? So that is pretty disappointing. It is also lacking other creature comforts, no reach adjustment on the steering, no radar cruise control, no blind spot monitoring. I really do think that they've missed the mark here in terms of the offering and what you get with it, and it really should be significantly cheaper than it is when you look at stuff like the SsangYong Musso, the GWM, Canon. They all come with a lot of the features that this is missing, and they're about the same price. So look, I am a little bit disappointed in it, and I'm keen for your feedback. Why are you buying this? Are you getting a good price for it? How has it been long term if you have bought one? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you share it with your mates, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel. Press the bell icon so you can find out every single time we review something new. But until next time, take it easy.